Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel for a car review. Today we have a 1996 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham to review. This is such a good looking car that I just couldn't wear my normal clothes. I had to look a little bit more dapper than I normally do so I could at least try and match the car a little bit, because my regular looks certainly would not do it. But I am very excited to review this car because it is such a special Cadillac within their lineup in the 1990s and in the modern era, and I truly can't wait to show you guys all about this vehicle. But before we get started, I would like to thank all of my subscribers for subscribing. We have now reached well over 14,000 subscribers, nearing 15,000, which is a big number, and I want to thank you all. However, only about 7% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you could subscribe, it would be a huge help, and you can always unsubscribe later. Also, I am now selling merchandise. If you're in need of any new hats, jackets, or shirts, you can click on the link in the description below. Also on that website is a bunch of General Motors merchandise, which I have been very pleased with. Also in the description are links to gmcarclubs.org and the Cadillac LaSalle Club. These groups are full of people who are interested in keeping excitement around these cars alive, so if you're interested, you can feel free to join those groups. Also, this video is sponsored by John Abrams and Associates Insurance Agency. John Abrams is a car enthusiast who has turned his love for cars into a special offering within his insurance agency. John has been in the insurance business for nearly 40 years, and he has earned the Hagerty Top Gear Award 4 years in a row. So if you're interested in having John insure your classic automobile, please click on the link to his website in the description below. Now, let's start talking about this 96 Fleetwood. But first, let's talk a little about the history of the Fleetwood as well as this 1996 Fleetwood. The Fleetwood name was first derived by the Fleetwood Metal Body Company, which was purchased by the Fisher Body Company in 1925. Fisher Body was a massive coach builder for multiple automotive manufacturers, including General Motors, and some Cadillacs ended up being designated as Fleetwood bodied cars. But the Fisher Body Company was fully purchased by General Motors, and the Fleetwood name became more prominent within the Cadillac lineup and eventually became a full-fledged model. However, 1996 was the final model year for General Motors' full-size rear-wheel drive sedans, including the Chevy Caprice, the Buick Roadmaster, and this Cadillac Fleetwood. Although the Fleetwood name did make one more appearance in 1998 and 1999 with the superior coach-built Fleetwood Limited, 1996 was the last of the true rear-wheel drive Fleetwoods that were built by Cadillac. Next, let's start off the review by taking a look at the front end of this Fleetwood. Up here we find a really sleek front end. It's really not overstyled or too gaudy. We find massive headlights up here, a really large chrome grille in Cadillac style, as well as a huge chrome bumper up front with these handy bumper guards so you can actually nudge people out of the way of parking spots without damaging the chrome. And I'm really glad that this Fleetwood came with a traditional Cadillac hood ornament up front. It does move so it can then protect pedestrians if you happen to crash into one of them. And also in traditional fashion is a Cadillac script on the chrome grille itself. And I specifically really like the design of the grille itself because of the way it is angled. If you look at it from the side, the top of the grille is angled more forwards compared to the bottom, which is kind of different from just about any other car on the road, and I think it's a really neat design feature of this era of Fleetwoods. Now taking a look at the side of the Fleetwood, there are plenty of things to point out here. Firstly are the cornering lights. Just like many other Cadillacs from this time, before and beyond, these lights will turn on when the turn signal is on, so it will light your way when making a turn at nighttime. And just like many traditional Fleetwoods from Cadillac's past, there is a Cadillac wreath and crest in the light behind the cornering lights. There are also some really large chrome wheels on this car, which look fantastic. It was an option for this vehicle. You could get regular aluminum looking wheels, but it just does not look nearly as good as the chrome wheels. And it also has large white wall tires, which is a very nice thing to see. And on the top of the front fenders of this car is one of my favorite things that these Fleetwoods came with, and that was the fiber optic cables for the front lights. As you can see, there are several housings on the top of the front fender. This is where the fiber optic cables would run to from the high beams, the headlights, and the turn signals indicating if they were working. The blue light would be for the high beam, the white light would be for the regular headlights, and the orange light would be for the turn signals. This reminds me of older Cadillacs that would also come with this same thing. However, this Fleetwood was the last model year of Cadillac to have it. And there is also a Fleetwood script on the front doors of this vehicle, which is showing off the Fleetwood name just a little bit. And I really like how Cadillac helped to make the side of the Fleetwood look very special by adding lots of chrome, including a very small strip of chrome that runs all the way from the front fender of the car all the way to the back, as well as chrome on essentially the lower third of this car, all along the bottom. It wraps around the entirety of the Fleetwood and looks absolutely fantastic. No other car from this era or since has had truly this much chrome on it, and it really sets off the look of this Fleetwood. I also really enjoy that there is a red pinstripe beneath the small line of chrome. It looks very beautiful and also makes the car look just a little bit more special and luxurious. And also on the roof of this Fleetwood, in true classic Cadillac fashion, is a vinyl top. Most Fleetwood Bromes would have come with this. However, there was an option delete to remove the vinyl top to have a regular metal roof. However, the vinyl top just looks nicer with this style of a vehicle. It also really brings back the heritage of the Cadillac Fleetwoods. Also on the roof is a massive sunroof, which is of course power opening and closing. And towards the back of the roof is another Cadillac badge and a Brome badge, signifying that this is the top of the line Fleetwood. And while we're at the side of the Fleetwood, I would like to mention that this is quite possibly my favorite angle to look at this vehicle, just because of all the chrome it has on it, the black paint, the vinyl top. It all just meshes so well together and looks very much like a classic Fleetwood, but built in a modern era. And I think it's one of my favorite looking Cadillacs from this time period and since. It just looks so classic and luxurious. Now taking a look at the back end of the Fleetwood, I very much like the design here. The trunk is nicely squared off. We have classic Cadillac tail lamps and a massive chrome bumper similar to the front of the car. And I really like how the reverse lights blend into the bumper because they're kind of a similar color and just beneath the black paint here. And there's also a Cadillac script and Brome badge on the back of the trunk. And there is more pinstriping on the trunk, leading you to the Cadillac wreath and crest in the middle there. And just like many other Cadillacs we've reviewed, the fuel door is the license plate bracket back here. All you have to do is lower it down, and that's how you get access to the gas tank. A very cool feature. However, this was the last model year for Cadillacs to receive this particular feature. And once you're ready to get into the trunk, all you have to do is push the Cadillac badge off to the side and it reveals the keyhole. And all you have to do is stick the key inside, twist, and the trunk will open like so. And inside of the trunk is roughly 21 cubic feet of space, which is certainly a lot of room. You can fit plenty of suitcases, bodies, or whatever else you might have to put in the trunk. And there is a donut spare tire in the back of the trunk as well. However, this does take up a lot of space, which is a bit of a shame. And you could also option a full-size spare tire, but this car did not come with that particular option. Back here, there is also a storage net to hold smaller items, and there is also a lever in the back of the trunk here, which is a little bit mysterious. This lever is actually used to lock the fuel door in the back of the car, and this can be used either manually or automatically with the lock button on the key fob. And the only complaint I have about this trunk is that it has a high liftover. Unfortunately, this lower section does not move out of the way, so if you have something heavy, you're gonna have to lift it pretty high up to get it into the trunk. However, once you are done with the trunk, all you have to do is very slowly lower it, and the trunk pull down, it takes care of the rest. One of my favorite Cadillac features ever is the trunk pull down, so it is nice to see at least that this Fleetwood did come with that feature. Next, let's take a look underneath the hood of the Fleetwood to see what is powering it. So the good thing is this hood is pretty easy to open up compared to many other Cadillac Fleetwoods and older classic Cadillacs I've reviewed. And under here we find the 5.7 liter LT1 V8 engine. This is a motor that is derived from many other GM performance cars such as the Camaro Z28, the Pontiac Firebird, and even the C4 Corvette. However, in this application, it makes less horsepower compared to those cars, but still respectable power. It makes about 260 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. Definitely enough to get this boat of a car moving. And these LT1s seem to have a cult-like following. The later model years were especially known to be very reliable. They were well engineered with an advanced design, and it of course makes enough power to move these big cars and get decent gas mileage while doing it. So overall, I'm really happy to see this LT1 in this Cadillac Fleetwood. Next, let's start up the Fleetwood and hear how it sounds. Before we take a look at the interior of this Fleetwood, I would like to show you guys the keys that came with this vehicle. I very much like these keys because these are the gold ones that would have come with the Fleetwood. There is also another set of silver ones that came with it. This is very traditional Cadillac with a squared off key and the round key. The squared one being used to start the car and the round one being used to unlock the doors and the trunk. And this did come with a key fob with all the usual buttons on it you'd expect. And there is a Cadillac script on the bottom, which is pretty special. However, I will say this key fob is pretty low quality. It's not exactly made in any sort of luxurious material, just very flimsy plastic that does kind of feel like it's going to break if you press on it. But I am glad that this did come with a key fob. It's very handy, and I really like the keys themselves. Now that we've taken a look at the exterior of the Fleetwood, let's go ahead and check out the interior. Taking a look at the interior of this 1996 Fleetwood, I am really blown away. I really love all of the leather in here, the leather stitching on the door, the plush leather seats, the beautiful wood used on the doors and the dashboard. And I even think that this maroon interior looks better than what a black interior would have looked on this car. It just adds a little bit more color and pop to it. So let's take a seat on the inside and see what it's like. Okay. On the interior of the Fleetwood, I absolutely love it in here. These seats are extremely soft and comfortable, maybe even more so than other 90s Cadillacs I've brought to the channel. I just love how they feel. It's so soft and plush. The leather is of really high quality. The headrest is in the perfect spot. And speaking of the leather, these seats in the Brougham are a little bit different than what would have been in the non-Brougham versions of the Fleetwood. It's actually with the pattern of the leather. As you can see, these seats have vertical stitching in the middle of them versus the horizontal stitching that would have been found in other Fleetwoods from the time. It's an interesting change that Cadillac made for the Brougham. I'm not really sure if one seat is really more comfortable than another because of that change, but it's kind of neat that Cadillac did change the look of the seats with the Brougham version. And these seats do have lots of controls. Most of them are found on the door panel. There are many switches here to move the seat forward, backwards, up and down. You can adjust the tilt, all the kind of usual stuff. And there are also buttons here for the memory driver's seat. And there are a few more switches here for the windows and the window lockout, as well as the mirror controls. And I really do like this row of buttons on the door here because they're all made of metal and extremely satisfying to use. They have a really nice click to them and just feel very luxurious, even more so than other Cadillacs from this time. And also on the door is a very large pull handle. It's made out of wood and feels very luxurious, and it has a little bit of padding on the back side of it. And there's a classic looking button for the door locks and a nice metal lever to get in and out of the vehicle. And there are a few more buttons and switches for the seat by my left thigh. There's one to adjust the recline of the seat, another for the heated seat, and another for the lumbar controls. And a really neat little quirk about the door is that there is a little hole in the wood above the door handle itself. And this hole is actually here to let light in at nighttime. There's a light bulb in there, and it'll shine on the metal switches so you can see what you're doing when it's dark out. And because the metal switches don't have lights within them to be able to see what you're touching, this light then gets around that issue so you can see what what you're pressing at nighttime. And in front of me is a large leather-wrapped steering wheel. It has a tilt function to it, and this wheel is also very similar to other Cadillacs at the time. And behind the steering wheel is the turn signal stalk. It's very similar to other GM products from the time, and unfortunately, just like those products, it's also very low quality. It feels very cheap to use and is made completely out of plastic. There's also a very traditional gear lever. It is also made out of plastic, but fortunately does feel a little bit better. And behind the steering wheel are the gauges. There's a speedometer there, a tripometer, and an odometer, and our fuel gauge. Honestly, not much information there. Very simple, very easy to read, and it's actually kind of nice because it gives you basically only the information you need to see and doesn't give you anything more than that. It's very similar to other Fleetwoods, even from the 70s. It doesn't really give you any more than what those cars gave you. However, it is all encased in this nice glossy wood. There are also some warning lights along the sides and 2 buttons in there. One of them is used to change between the imperial and the metric system, and the other one is used to reset the tripometer. On the left side of the dashboard are the controls for the headlights as well as the Twilight Sentinel. And on the center of the dashboard are the climate controls. All the buttons are very simple to read and easy to use. However, there is not dual climate control on this Fleetwood, which is a bit of a shame. And also on the dashboard is the radio. There are lots of buttons here, but overall it's very easy to read what they do and easy to use them. And there was an optional CD player that came with this particular Fleetwood, and there's also a tape player for you to play your cassettes. And of course, being a Cadillac from the 90s, this did come with a massive ashtray in the center of the dashboard. All passengers up front would have to share this one ashtray though, which is kind of a shame. And on the dashboard towards the passenger side is a very beautiful looking Brome script, which is inlaid into the wood, and beneath that is the Cadillac script. The passenger can then read both of these badges and see that this is the top end Cadillac. And as far as storage goes in this car, there really isn't a whole lot. There is a decently large center console and a large glove compartment. However, there is no storage inside of the doors, which is a bit of a shame. And inside of the center console itself, there is a coin holder there, as well as a few slots for you to put your cassettes and CDs. And there's also a very flimsy cup holder, which kind of folds into the armrest when you're not using it, and then it also folds out of the center console when you do need it. It's honestly very much an afterthought because it's very cheap feeling and just kind of lays out in the open, but it is nice to have cup holders. And inside of the glove compartment is a yellow button to open up the trunk, just like many traditional Cadillacs had, and there's also a switch to turn off the traction control. And this Fleetwood did come with an automatic dimming mirror, but what's really strange about it is that it has lights and switches for those lights on the bottom of the mirror. Kind of a strange place to put interior lights, but that's where Cadillac decided to put them. Also on the roof are sun visors as well as mirrors for both the passenger and the driver, and there is a switch for the power sunroof as well as the garage home link switches. And what's strange is that because this car did come with this sunroof, they had to remove the sunglasses holder, which would have been here in the center of the roof. I'm guessing there just wasn't enough room to have the sunroof and the sunglasses holder there at the same time. And also on the roof are more interior lights that can be turned on and off, as well as grab handles for all the people inside of the car to make it easier to get in and out. And overall, the interior on this car is very clearly made for an older clientele. Not to say that that's a bad thing, it's just a more traditional sort of luxury car in here. Not much technology, not too much information that could just be overwhelming. It's all very simple and basically gives you everything that you need to have, but also a luxurious interior to go along with it. All right, I am now in the back seat of the Fleetwood, and these seats are just as comfortable as the front ones. They are so soft. It's like sitting on a couch in your living room. It's just such a nice place to be. You can fit 3 people back here, just like you can in the front, actually. So this is a 6-passenger car, and I really enjoy being back here, not just because it's really comfortable, but also because there's plenty of room. And the seat also has a really cool Cadillac wreath embroidered into it, which is very luxurious. There's also a really large armrest in the middle of the seat, which is leather wrapped and very soft. And it also has a cup holder as well as a cubby area. The cup holder is a bit more sturdy than the one up front, which is really nice. And it even has a little slot in it, so if you have something like a mug with a handle, it can still fit inside of there without falling out. The doors are also very luxurious with the same leather wrapping in the top of the door and the wood, as well as the nice metal switches and buttons here. And I do also like how the rear doors have ashtrays, so everyone back here can continue to smoke if they wanted to. There are also grab handles and lights back here, as well as more fiber optic cables in the roof for the rear taillights and turn signals. It's also in the perfect spot for the driver to see them in the rear mirror. But there is something that is missing in this Brougham that would have come with many other Broughams, and that would be the rear vanity mirrors. Unfortunately, because this Brougham was optioned with the sunroof, they had to remove the vanity mirrors, which would have been here in the roof because it would have been in the way. And honestly, I'm okay with it because I would have preferred having a sunroof than the vanity mirrors, but it is a shame that Cadillac couldn't figure out a way to still keep the vanity mirrors and have the sunroof at the same time. And something that I really wish Cadillac would have included with this Fleetwood when they built it would have been rear writing tables and footrests for those in the back seat. That would have really have made it much more like a Fleetwood from the 60s or earlier. However, they did address this with the Fleetwood Limited when they built that car, but I really wish they would have added it with this Fleetwood because it was the final send-off for the traditional Cadillac-built Fleetwoods. Now that we've taken a look at the exterior and the interior of the Fleetwood, let's go ahead and take it for a drive. All right, we are driving the 1996 Cadillac Fleetwood. So as many of you probably already know, or if you've been followers of the channel for quite some time, the second video I ever made was on a 1996 Fleetwood limousine, and that was one that my family had owned. But anyways, it was the second video I ever did, and I really had no idea what I was doing as far as making videos goes. Not that I know now, but I only had a like 30-second long driving portion to the video. I didn't really talk much about how the car actually drove and rode. So ever since then, I'd been wanting to drive a traditional sedan to actually get the experience of that car, but also to really hopefully explain to you guys what this car is all about and why it's just such a good riding vehicle. And that's just the thing. It's such a brilliant riding car. It's definitely not as floaty and boaty as like the traditional 1970s and 80s Cadillacs. It's a lot more controllable. It's a bit more drivable. It finds a good balance in the middle where it's still very comfortable, but it's not like you're driving a barge down the road. So I do very much like that about the 90s Cadillacs, especially this particular Fleetwood. And just looking over the hood of this car, it is definitely a lot longer than any other Cadillac from this era that I've driven. Longer than the Fleetwood Limited, longer than the Eldorado, of course. It's just such a big feeling car compared to those, and I really kind of forgot what that experience was like. And it really does handle the bumps well. The suspension does a good job of softening everything up as expected. The steering feels good and confident. I just love the feeling of this car. And I think it's really the best riding car that I've driven from the 90s that Cadillac had to offer. It's just so good. And it's of course very quiet in here, very relaxed. The seating makes everything even more comfortable and relaxed. This car is also bringing back a lot of memories of that limousine, which is very enjoyable. It's just been so long since I've been in one of these mid-90s Cadillac Fleetwoods. All right, everybody, let's see if we can do a 0 to 60 run to see what the Fleetwood is all about. Here we go. A little bit of wheel spin there. There's 30, 40, 50, 60. Holy cow. Whoa, that's a lot quicker than I would have expected. Man, the LT1 really does have some power to it. Ooh, it was screaming. And it feels maybe even a little bit more powerful off the line than some of the North Star vehicles I've reviewed. And that's something that I really like about traditional Cadillacs, is that they're just extremely luxurious, but they also are very powerful, so they have plenty of power to overtake someone or to merge onto a highway or have a little bit of fun when moving in a straight line. And I also really wish that more Cadillacs would have had the fiber optic cables. I think that's something that just looks awesome at nighttime, and it would be cool if the Cadillacs somehow found a way to bring that back into their modern cars. Throughout this video, I've compared this Fleetwood a lot to more traditional Cadillacs rather than other Cadillacs in the 1990s. The Seville, the Eldorado, and even the DeVille to some extent was becoming more sporty and futuristic in their styling and technology to compete with the German and Japanese luxury brands that were starting to take over. However, the Fleetwood never got that same treatment. With how this car looks and how it drives, it's very much more a classic traditional Fleetwood rather than being some futuristic vehicle. And I think that's what made this car very different from anything else that Cadillac was making at the time. And I think this was the very last Cadillac to offer purely a luxury experience rather than a showcase of futurism or sportiness or technology. This is quite simply a big car with bold looks and traditional luxury that is unlike anything else that has been built then or since then. And it's the final example of a bygone era within Cadillac and the American automotive industry. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video about this Fleetwood as much as I have. Like I said before, I'd been wanting to drive a Fleetwood sedan for a very long time just to experience it, but also to really show you guys why this car is so special and one of the final greats within the Cadillac lineup as far as the traditional cars go. So please remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and to come back again soon for more videos.